Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. We're here to put a special interview ahead of Cardiff Swansea tomorrow morning, and very much looking forward to catching up with someone who I interviewed a couple of years ago when I was very much getting started. I think I might have even done it on Skype at that point. I'm not sure. My memory isn't that good. But I'm absolutely delighted to welcome back former Scotland and Cardiff City midfielder, Mr. Gavin Rae. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having us back on.
No, it's all good, mate. It's good. It's nice to catch up. Obviously, like I was very privileged to chat to you previously when I was very much first starting out. So I appreciated it then. I appreciate it now. Appreciate your time. First and foremost, mate, how are you and how's everything going?
Good. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks. A lot of change in my life. So been in Australia for the last 10 years, but recently moved back to the UK a couple of months ago. So enjoying being back. There's a few reasons we came back. You know, family obviously being a big part of it, but a few other things in terms of work as well. So yeah, no, I'm really enjoying being back in the UK.
Good man. So we just had a quick chat about Scotland in the Euros, but we'll run it back a little bit on camera. Obviously, great to get to the Euros. I'm sure it's been quite a while since Scotland have been at these tournaments. So first of all, how did it feel for you as a Scotsman to, for the nation to be there, but then maybe be disappointed with the performances?
Yeah, no, obviously really pleased with how they got there and qualifying really early. The qualifying campaign was probably one of the best ever, in recent memory anyway. So delighted they were there and in the mix, but just watching the Euros for Scotland was really frustrating, just because it was like we didn't really even have a go. It was a really defensive and cagey approach, and you still go out. So if you're gonna go out, at least sort of have a go. That's probably the biggest frustration for me, was watching it. And I understand we're maybe not at the level of some of the other countries in terms of Germany. I get that. Switzerland, we did okay, but never really created too much. And the last game was probably the most frustrating because it was a game that both teams needed to win. They sort of sat back. We didn't really know how to break them down, and then they nick a goal on the counter attack. But we didn't really, have a lot of attacking moments in the game, and that's a frustrating thing when you're watching it. Like I say, I'd rather they have a big go for it and still go out, rather than sit back and wait to try and nick a goal and then still go out and get beat. So it was frustrating watching it. I can understand the manager's approach, like I say, in terms of the squad and stuff, but yeah, overall, really frustrating watching it.
Yeah, I guess as a manager and a coach, there's a thin line, isn't there, between realizing your limitations, but also, like you say, in a tournament like that, you're going to go out. You may as well go out having a go and doing what got you to the dance. And I think Wales suffered a little bit with that in the Qatar, and it's one of those things where in that sort of tournament, yes, you don't want to get stuffed, but also you don't want to go out with a whimper almost and kind of, like you say, lack those attacking moments. But hopefully we'll see Scotland, Wales as well at tournaments to come. I was lucky enough to speak to Wales manager Craig Bellamy recently, and he's got some interesting plans for Wales, and quite excited actually to see what his squad is like. I think he names it tomorrow, might even be today. So that I'm be fascinated to see what sort of changes and how he implements his own sort of blueprint on it. But interesting. So obviously, you played for a host of clubs, started your career in Scotland. When you came from Rangers to Cardiff in 2007, wasn't it? You had a few different clubs after you. I think Norwich was one of them, and I'm sure there was a couple of others. What was the what sold you on coming to Cardiff over those other opportunities?
Yeah, to be honest, it's probably, Dave Jones done a fantastic job of selling the club and what the city is, and what his plans were for the club and the in the city and the progression that he was looking to make. Also, I think the fact there was a couple of boys there that I knew in terms of Kev and Tomo, so there's a familiarity even though you're moving away from Scotland. I was really keen to get away from Scotland because I'd played in Scotland my whole career, so I was looking for a new, fresh challenge. So there was a lot of things that sort of made sense to make the move to Cardiff, and obviously I was delighted with doing it because I had a really enjoyable few years there.
Yeah, it's that Dave Jones era for Cardiff is a really interesting one, because I think at the time there was sometimes frustration that we didn't quite get over the line at certain points. But then equally, when you look at it now and when people look back on it, I think he's widely regarded as, a lot of people's favourite manager, or that period certainly is a favourite period of the football we were playing, the players we had. What was Dave Jones like to play for, and what was it like within that team in terms of on and off the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably agree with that. We were so close so many years to getting over the line, and it was always the nearly team, which was really frustrating. But we had an amazing squad, and that's one thing that you got to give Dave credit for in terms of assembling a squad and the camaraderie within the squad and the quality within the squad, and then making all that work. I thought he was great at that. Really good at putting that squad together. Sourcing players, bringing players in, and enhancing the squad, as well as adding to the existing squad within the club. So I think that was a really important factor that he brought, and also the style that we played. It was pretty much old school 4-4-2 most of the time, which you never see these days. But we've always played with two strikers, two wingers, and then obviously the two midfielders, and which meant that me and Maka had to get through a lot of work in the middle against three normally. But it definitely enhanced the team forward because we could always play with two. And a really, really enjoyable time to play, within the group in the squad. But like you say, we're so close every year. I mean, I think the first year I was there, we got final. The second year we missed out on the playoffs by the goal difference. Then it was the playoff final, and then the semi in the playoffs. So we were always really close, right up at the top of the table. But yeah, we just never managed to get over the line. So it's tinged with a little bit of sadness that we never managed to do that, but also really fond memories of looking back and being, pushing every year. We were always up there pushing, try to get something done for the club.
Yeah. It was a painful time in many ways. Like as a fan as well, it was difficult because it was so close. I think one of the things which has really struck me, having spoken to it, I've been lucky enough to interview a lot of players from that team. And become quite friendly with a few of them, like Kev and stuff. Talk all the time, and one of the things which strikes me is, particularly from like the likes of Kev and Chops, Jay Barfroyd, is the man management of Dave Jones within that team seems to have been quite exceptional. Not necessarily always one-to-one, but like to be able to, if the players did their job and they played well and they won the games, they had a bit of freedom to go and have a drink and let loose. But equally then, if they didn't perform, they wouldn't. And it was kind of like, it was almost like I did Chops, I can't remember how he described it, but it's almost like a reward system, isn't it? It's like if you do well, crack on. If you don't, maybe stay at home. But go on.
Yeah, no, and I'd agree with that to an extent. Certainly, he's. I think he touched on it there. 1-to-1, I didn't think he was like amazing. But managing the group, kind of what I touched on at the start, I thought he was very good at, in terms of making sure everyone was doing their business. And it's like anything, if you work hard and you do well, you'll get more freedom than what you would if you weren't doing well. So it's like that. And it was kind of like old school, you do well, you get your rewards. And in terms of a group, it was an enjoyable time to play for the club, for sure, with so many good players and good characters within it. And like that's what I think he done really well, was just get good characters within the building. They could all rub off on each other, run the dressing room themselves, but all with a huge desire to obviously be successful. So it was a good time. It's definitely a different type of manager than what I'd been used to and what I'd had beyond that, but definitely had his really good traits that worked well and created a sort of sense of calm within the dressing room and let the boys play and do their stuff.
Yeah, it was a hell of a squad, in fairness, throughout like that time. Who were some of the leaders within that group?
I mean, I think there was a lot of big characters. You know, when I first joined, obviously we had Big Percy was there. Ricky Shimika was still there. Great, two great pros and good lads within the dressing room. And then you've got sort of the younger ones that had big, strong characters. Roger Johnson. Obviously, I'd been captain at most clubs I was at, so I could show leadership. And then you've got Maka, who again, you know, was a leader in a different way, quiet leader, but really shown by example what to do. And then the first year, obviously, we brought in Jimmy. Robbie was there as well, and Trevor. So huge characters within the squad, and you know, it was throughout my time there. You know, there was always big cat, and I think again that's what Dave did really well.
What's it like for you guys? You came over from Scotland and Kev and people like that. When you see the likes of Robbie Fowler and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank come into the door, you hear the rumours, and then they come into the dressing room. Is it a bit surreal in some ways to see that, or is it just another day at the office?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there was lots of rumours about who was coming and who wasn't, and then obviously when you get Jimmy, Robbie, and Trevor come to the club, I mean, they're legends of the game, played hundreds of games at the top level, and done some amazing things in football. So great for me to play with these guys. I was lucky. I played obviously at Rangers with the De Boer twins, Kanija, Arteta. I had some incredible players that I was lucky enough to play with. So you're still in awe, and you still you love meeting and playing with these people. But I think I'd seen some big names previously, so it was great just to continue that when I came to Cardiff, to be honest.
Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank for me is like the most powerful shot I've ever seen in person. Like just when he connects with it, and it's like no backlift either, so he just like almost shoot off his foot, and it was just it's incredible. What's he like as a character? Because he comes across as quite quiet when you see him in media interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's certainly not quiet. Not loud and abrasive or brash, but more. I mean, more on the pitch, like really demanding on the pitch, and can be a bit of a moan. To be honest, I was a bit like that myself, so I can't really say too much. But really demanding on the pitch. Me and Jimmy had plenty of bust ups in training and in games. But it's just that desire to win, and I had nothing but love for Jimmy. He's a top player, top guy, and just a huge desire to win, and that's what he was trying to bring to the squad. So you can't complain about that. But yeah, he's definitely not quiet. I wouldn't say he's quiet. Put it that way.
Yeah, he seems like someone who expects high standards. Obviously, played at the top level, and then I think when later on down the line, when people like Craig Bellamy came in and all these players, whenever they go to a football club, particularly if they go, it is like a step down from the Premier League, say, to the Championship. It's good to see that they still expect high standards from their teammates, from the training, whatever it may be. So were you a bit of a moaner, Gav? Were you?
I would say I was a moaner. It just demands, everyone just puts in the shift and do their best, and not so much of a moaner, but certainly continuously, talking and encouraging. And if people aren't doing the things right, and just pulling them up.
I'm not afraid to tell them.
Not afraid, not at all. No, not afraid to tell them, because we're all trying to get the same thing. And I wouldn't say I would definitely wouldn't demean anyone or put anyone down, but it's more like, come on, we need to do better, and constantly talking in the game. And you don't see that so much nowadays, but with the kids that are coming through, and they're quite quiet. But I think that's like an old school trait that people that was just normal. Everyone was obviously trying to encourage each other and talk each other through the game, and speak to each other and demand standards from each other. So I was like that. Definitely not. I wouldn't say I was a moaner, but constantly on setting demands. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I only used that word to ask the question because you said it, man. It's just I wasn't implying that you were a moaner. It's interesting because I think what Dave Jones did as well is there was a lot of players who came in and some of them had a bit of a reputation of being difficult, or they had certain issues off the field or whatever it was. And it was almost at times it felt like he had sort of, for lack of a better term, had like a band of misfits almost, and he got the best out of. I think not many of them, those players who came in under Dave Jones, came in and weren't able to kind of get the best, get the best out of him. And I think, like, just using Jay Bothroyd as an example, I think even he would say, he did say that he played his best stuff in his whole career at Cardiff under Dave Jones. So there was definitely an element of that. How did he get the best out of players that maybe other managers weren't able to get a tune out of?
I think he was really trusting. For instance, with Jay, I think Jay sort of knew he had a platform to go and produce, his quality. And Dave had promised him that and followed through on it. And then that allows Jay to feel, trusted and able to produce what he can produce, because there's no doubt, technically and his ability-wise, he was phenomenal. So it was about, giving him that platform to do that. And I think, like you touched on there, I think that was one of Dave's best traits for sure. Bringing these players in that some other clubs might not be willing to work with because of their background or what they've done. But Dave looked through that, looked past that, and seen the player and produced the platform for them. And I think also for someone like Jay coming in, or the other ones that maybe have got different backgrounds, because of the way the squad was high demanding of itself. Dave put the onus on the players to make sure everything was right, in the dressing room and on the pitch, and then he trusted a lot in his players. I think doing that and then bringing Jay into that, and then trusting Jay, and giving him the confidence. Dave was really good at stuff like that. Really good at the stuff like that within the squad. Not just Jay, everyone. Everyone sort of had that platform to go and express himself with trust. And I think that's why Jay probably produced his best stuff when he was at Cardiff.
Yeah. Who do you think was the most underrated player within that sort of time, your time at Cardiff?
Underrated
or underappreciated maybe by the outside world, but the players and the team?
I think, Steve McPhail, who obviously was my partner in the middle, was a phenomenal football player. And maybe like not as flashy as some, as like a Jay or a Chops or a Joe Ledley or Wits or whatever, but just a really important cog in the wheel in the team. And I know he did get appreciated. I'm not saying he didn't get appreciated, but he was a top player, Maka. I was lucky to play with a lot of good players in my career, and he was definitely right up there in terms of a midfield partner for me. So I don't know if he's underappreciated, but I think he just maybe doesn't get the props that some of the other ones get, and that's fair enough. That's football and that's how it works. But I really enjoyed playing with Maka, and and Kev for consistency, just always there. Constantly up and down, and a fit boy, and produced his best stuff at Cardiff, no doubt as well.
Yeah, interesting on Steve McPhail. I had a discussion. Yes, I think it was yesterday's show, might be the day before, but we were talking about the current Cardiff squad. They've got like Siopis, who's the defensive midfielder, who's going to basically be the destroyer and then give it to other people to go. And I sort of hypothesized that it's a long old season, and he's going to need a break at some point, and he's going to need different, time off or to come off. And I sort of hypothesized that we might see Joe Rawls slot in at a 6, who's not necessarily the same player. He's not as physical and aggressive and that, but he's so good on the ball and he reads the game well. And the comparison that I used is that, if you're playing against in today's football, if you're playing against a ball playing team, you can have a 6 who's maybe a bit more of a player who's just going to do the simple things well, read the game. And I think that's what Steve McPhail did so well. And I think probably the best, you're going to agree or disagree, I would say the best way to describe it is, you're right, he's maybe underappreciated is not the right term, but he was a vital cog for everything else to work. And when he wasn't there, we did seem to be not as fluid and not as just, everything working and going well. Do you think that's a fair assessment of his position?
Yeah, definitely, and definitely vital. Like I said, not so flashy. Similar to myself, not a flashy player, but sort of when you're not there, you sort of notice it more than when they are there.
Yeah.
With
Sure.
Maka and myself as well, during my career, I'd be the same sort of player as that as well. But yeah, no, I totally take that point and probably agree with it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Joe and what's the number 6 name? The little
Psyopis, yeah, the Manu Psyopis.
Yeah. So
he's really good, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I was at the game on Saturday. I went to the game on Saturday at Burnley, so which obviously wasn't a great result, but it was good to see them in the flesh.
They were good for 30 minutes though. When I thought we started really well, and in fact he was weird. It was such a strange game that we lost 5-0, but I think 4 of the goals are avoidable, like they're from mistakes. So you're almost looking at it going, we've just played all right, but we've lost 5-0, and I think in the Championship these days, the level is so high, you get mistakes. You'll get punished for mistakes, especially against a team like Burnley who've got 35 players and they're all multi-million-pound signings and whatnot. But what did you make of that sort of first 30 minutes when we looked at, all right, how do you think we played?
It was such a strange game because actually played all right for a lot of the game. Kept the ball well enough for the game, but I think there was frustration because we kept the ball well enough, but not really doing much with it. We had a couple of half chances, and then, like you say, mistakes, giving away the goals, and you get punished at that level. I don't think it was a 5-0 game, but it was frustrating that it just. I actually didn't think they had to work that hard to get the 5-0, which is really frustrating. Because if anyone's beating you 5-0, it should be really like either playing phenomenal and just tilt levels above. I'm not saying Burnley aren't, because obviously they've just came down from Prem, they've got a lot of money in that squad, I get that. But I didn't think they had to work that hard for the 5-0, which was frustrating. But it was a strange game, really strange, because Cardiff kept the ball really well at times, but like I said, I didn't feel we didn't do that much with it. With a couple of half chances in the first half, but second half never really done much at all, and frustrating game overall. But a very strange game overall.
Yeah, the start of the season's been a bit like that. It's been a bit like little glimpses of what you can expect and what will be good when it all kind of clicks. I do think it's a bit unfortunate at the moment because he's brought in a lot of good quality players, but they haven't, they're not quite fit, or they're not playing. So he's almost going in largely with the team from last year. So he hasn't been able to implement. He's sort of trying to implement a newer style, but without the players that he's brought in to play that style. So I do get it. I think there's a bit of patience needed.
Totally.
Just on that, I mean, we had a massive chance at 1-0, the one-on-one where he hits the post. If that goes in, that's such a different game, because I think that first goal is such a horror show of a mistake that if you equalise quite soon afterwards, you can kind of put it behind you and build on the start you've made. But unfortunately, that was the story of our season last year. We missed a lot of one-on-ones. So hopefully this new striker, Kango, can, once he's up to speed, he'll get the goals. Before we move to the current Cardiff squad in a bit more detail, I wanted to talk about the kind of you leaving Cardiff, and obviously around 2010, it looked at one point like you were going to go from Cardiff to Leeds, but you obviously ended up going back to Scotland. Was it just time for you to leave Cardiff? Was there a fallout and stuff like that, or was it just it was the right time?
I wouldn't say there was a fallout. I mean, I definitely didn't play as much in the last year as what I'd have liked, and David brought in new players, and listen, I get that as well. But the last year, I had the opportunity to go to Leeds on loan, but I would ideally have been looking for a permanent, because it was hard, because my twins were, I think they were only what would have been that, 2008, 2010, 2 years old. 2-3 years old, and we just got them into a preschool and kindergarten, and I didn't want to and because Leeds is so far away from Cardiff, obviously I would have had to. I couldn't commute, so it was do we up sticks and move to Leeds? But I've only got a year's loan, no guarantee of staying there longer, and it just became too hard to do. So I ended up staying. I probably shouldn't have, because I didn't play nowhere near as much as what I would have liked. And then the cycle of that squad sort of came to an end at the end of that year. It was so strange, and I still look back on this as weird, but Dave was the one who released me and said I wouldn't be getting a new deal, but then he left as well. So it's well, it's not really your call, but by that time, I pretty much left the club. So yeah, it was just time to move on. I'd been there 4 years at that point. Had 3.5 years really good, and in the last 6 months not particularly great. And it was time to move on, basically. So I ended up coming back up to Scotland. Yeah.
Got you. And then obviously you went out to Australia, or you were living in Australia, and you had a little stint. You played in Australia as well, didn't you, towards the end of your career?
Yeah, I did play at semi-pro level, just the training during 2-3 nights a week, and then playing on the weekend, and a bit of coaching as well, which I really enjoyed. So I played till I was 40 out there. Good
man. And then you had a little stint in management. Is that something that you'd like to continue to do?
Possibly. I'd done it for 7 of the 10 years I was in Australia, and then it got to the point. So our twins are a lot older now, both play football and both training 3-4 nights a week. So it just became impossible for me to do coaching on the side of that as well. So it just knocked on the head, became the Uber driver for the kids, and then maybe revisit once they're up and standing on their own and on 2 feet and doing what they want. But at the moment, I'm just an Uber driver.
Yeah, well, it's never ending, isn't it? Cycle with the kids. Apart from my boys as well, they're the same. Football 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and then of course there's other things, and there's not enough hours in a day, mate. As it goes, it's a famous saying. But in terms of the current Cardiff side, obviously Aero Bullet stabilised the football club last year. I think they're building. Sorry, bear with me, Gav, a minute. Someone at the door, and I think it's something I need to deal with. Sorry, mate. Forward it again. Yeah, so I mean, Aero Bullet, he stabilised the club last year. I think it was a very difficult place to come into, because we had largely, for the last 2 or 3 years before this summer, been running on loans, freeze. We had the transfer embargo when he came in as well. So he couldn't really bring in players who were going to stay at the club for longer than that season. So it is difficult. And I thought he did a real good job at we were never in the relegation battle. And even at one point, the first half of the season, we were really good. And at one point, we looked like we maybe could push on. But I think we didn't have the finances to back him really in the January window to do that. And we probably weren't ready. I think this summer, I've been really impressed with the ins. I think he still needs to move a few out, but I think the ins have been, there's a certain, if you look at all the players he's brought in, they're of a certain level, which automatically raises the level, which automatically raises the depth of the squad. You've got Callum Chambers has played at the top level, El Ghazi, and then there's a certain midfielder who you were familiar with, Mr. Alex Robertson, who, before I asked you about him, I spoke to someone. Well, I spoke to a couple of people at Manchester Way, but I spoke to a journalist up there, and I spoke to some Portsmouth fans actually as well, and they rate him so high. The Portsmouth fans that I spoke to, he's a little bit younger than me, but he's about 30 odd, and he said that Alex is the best Portsmouth player he's seen since he's been going down there in his 30 years. He said he's a generational talent. So that got me very excited, and I did a little bit more research and check-in. And not only does he look exceptionally talented, I think he's exactly what we have needed. We've needed someone with a bit of legs, but also a bit of quality to get in there alongside Sarpit. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him come into the side. Obviously, I think he had that injury, didn't he, towards the end of the last season. But once he's up to full speed, I'm expecting some good stuff from him. But you have to remember as well, he's still a relatively young man. But I suppose, first of all, tell us how you're related, and also then kind of talk about Alex and whatnot.
Yeah, no problem.
You taught him everything he knows.
No, definitely not. So Alexander's dad is my brother-in-law, and his wife and my wife, they're sisters. That's basically how we're related. So and obviously the reason I went to Australia, because my wife's Australian. Her sister and her family were brought up in Australia, and my sister-in-law has been going with Robbo's dad for years. Basically, they got married a long time ago, high school sweethearts. And then Mark Robertson, his dad, played with me at Dundee, basically. So Mark was over playing at Dundee, and then I head off with basically my wife now, Barbara, sister-in-law. And then that's how we're related, basically.
Got you. So yeah, he's got a bit of football pedigree in the family with yourself and his dad. What's he like as a person? First of all, like, is he quite chilled? Is he excitable?
He's definitely chilled. Definitely chilled. Alexander's very relaxed, really confident in his own ability, as he should be, because he's got a lot of talent. But yeah, no, he's just chilled. He's a really good kid, a great kid, and he's obviously had a really good upbringing in football, been around it. His granddad played for Dundee and then moved out to Australia, and then played for the Socceroos as well. So he's got a lot of people around him that have been involved in football. Know the landscape, know the industry, and he's always, since I can remember, Alexander, he's always been kicking the ball about, and his dad's done, his mum and dad and his sisters, he's got a really close family, and they've done a really good job with him in terms of bringing him up and being a really good kid, in the whole. But very chilled, and a huge talent for sure.
Is he someone who was naturally gifted, like at a young age, or was he someone who had to kind of work at it? I know you have to work at it anyway, but you know what I mean. Like sometimes you just have kids who are just naturally just incredible talents, and then they work on it to get even better. Or was he someone who needed, to improve as he went along and work hard at it?
No, I mean, he is definitely naturally gifted. Absolutely loves football. As I say, been around football a long, long time, and he was, from when I can remember, always with his dad. His dad was, at a coaching school, and he was always with his dad, kicking the ball about. So he's had a really good upbringing, very naturally gifted from a young age. He was a little bit, more petite when he was younger, but now he's grown into himself, and he's a strong kid, strong guy. So he's got everything going for him. I think he touched on it there when his loan move at Portsmouth last year was going exceptionally well. He was flying, he was loving it, enjoying it. They really thought a lot of him. Unfortunately, got the injury, which made him come back to Manchester to get the treatment, get the operation, and get the treatment done. And now he's looking to go again. But I think it's an amazing pickup by Cardiff. I really hope he goes on and enjoys it as much as I did. But he's a top talent, man.
Yeah, I mean, the journalists that I spoke to from Manchester way, they were sort of saying, like, when it was, kind of the deal was being rumoured and done and things, that they said, like, Manchester City weren't that fussed on selling him. They would have rather him probably go out on loan again and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, and it kind of got negotiated. And I think it's a real coup for Cardiff, because I think you'd understand if he had gone, say, to Portsmouth for this season, or on a permanent deal, because he'd been there before. He would have known the area, the people, etc., the manager. So I think that also says something about his character as well, that he's willing to almost go away from the comfortability, if that makes sense, and push on. What can Cardiff City fans expect from Alex?
Well, like you say, he sort of backs himself. He's super confident in his own ability, as he should be. He's got a lot of talent. He's, I think he can play probably any of the positions in the middle. I think he's, more like a box-to-box midfielder, that can attack and get goals, create goals, but also do the dirty work when needed. I think if Cardiff give him the platform to express himself and, create things. I think that's probably his best at what he does, and he can add a lot of value. But yeah, just someone who's really confident in themselves, back themselves, very tidy player that can create things when needed, and score goals as well. So he's got a bit of everything, which is it's quite unique these days. To have the all-round box-to-box sort of midfielder. But it'll be interesting to see where the manager plays him and what his thoughts are for him. But he's got options for where he plays him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I'm really hoping that we see him alongside Siopis on Sunday, to be honest, because I think that'll be I think it'll be a perfect mix between the two of them with, a Ramsey or a Ruben Colwell in front of them. I think that's exciting for Cardiff City fans. But as I said a bit earlier, with the team overall, I think you've got to allow a bit of patience. We've had a real difficult start to the season, as well as we haven't quite got all these players fit and up to speed and things like that. So I think it's going to be interesting as the season goes. But then last season we started really well and then kind of faded away a little bit at certain points. Hopefully this year, we'll have a bit of a rough start, but we're going to see that sort of upward curve from then. With Alex, so I'm assuming he would have been eligible to play for a few different nationalities as well. Would he not? Would he be available for Scotland as well?
He is. He was born in Scotland, mate. He was born in Dundee. So when we were at Dundee, myself and his dad, Mark, he was born in Dundee. So yeah, he's definitely eligible for Scotland. He's also got Peru. So his mum and my wife are Peruvian background. So he can represent Peru, obviously Australia, growing up there. And his dad's Australian, Scottish Australian. And I think he also played for England under 16s and 18s level, alongside Jude Bellingham. So he's eligible for England as well. So he's definitely got options. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him in the future. I mean,
if his progression keeps going as it is, he'll have a choice, won't he? And,
I mean, he played for Australia last March, I think it was. He played for Australia. Okay. So yeah, no, he's actually played for Australia, but not. I don't think it was. Yeah, no, he's played for Australia. He's played for twice, or 2 or 3 times, maybe for Australia. But
okay.
I don't know if he's locked into Australia because I think it was friendlies and stuff. So he's still.
Right. Okay.
I think he's still eligible for other countries. Yeah.
Got you. So just to kind of wrap us up, mate. Obviously, big game on Sunday for Cardiff, and I think after a difficult start, in many ways, it's the perfect game to kickstart your season, because if you go and put in a performance and get a good result, everyone's confident. The whole kind of all the negativity from the 2 defeats goes, and you can build on that. What are your memories of playing them lot?
Yeah, some difficult games, some good games, but overall, huge occasion, huge fixture. I think, like you say, form sort of goes out the windows for these games, and if you can get a win, then yeah, you're buzzing, you're back on it. So it's going to be a tough game. Obviously, it's down there and it's away, isn't it? It's at their stadium, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it'll be tough. There's no doubt it'll be a tough game, and the lads will have to be up for it and put in a performance. But yeah, I'm sure they're confident in themselves and get a result. There's enough talent within the squad. There's no doubt. It's just about making sure the mix sort of happens and works well on the day. So I hopefully they go and do it. I'll obviously be watching from afar, but looking forward to the game.
Did you play in that game where Steve McPhail got sent off against Swansea? I'm trying to think.
Was that Ninian or?
Now you're testing my memory. I'm gonna have to have a look. But yeah, like you obviously the era where you played versus Swansea, they were in their full-on sort of possession play era, weren't they? Like the Martinez's and these kind of Laudrup and things like that. As a midfielder, did you feel like you were chasing the ball a lot because they would knock it around?
Yeah, there was one game down at the Liberty, and they had a really good game that night, and it was really tough. Can't remember the score, but it wasn't favourable to us, I'm pretty sure. But that night, I was like, I mean, they were a top team that passed the ball just forever, and I had some really top players as well. So that was a difficult night. Yeah, they were a good team in terms of the way they played in the possession and the sort of identity of the club. But we always gave a good account of ourselves and done well enough against them. So it was an interesting sort of mix. Their sort of, you know, possession based football and our sort of direct 4-4-2 sort of old school style. And it was always close games for sure.
I think as well the one thing which was never levelled at you and the other Cardiff players at that time was when we did play them. If we did lose, it was never your commitment or your aggression or being up for it. That was never questioned. And I think that's something that has been levelled at Cardiff probably over more recent times, is that sometimes it feels like the main outlier being the home game last year. But apart from that, like, it feels sometimes as a fan, you're watching and it feels like the players maybe don't feel it the same way as the fans. Last year, the home game, I thought Cardiff were absolutely outstanding. And at no point, I mean, the thing which tells the story for me as a fan, like a derby game like that is the most nerve-wracking thing you can go through. Like, you're constantly on edge. And in that game, at no point was I ever on edge. I always felt we were in control. Never really felt like Swansea were going to score. But then the away game towards the end of the season, we were the complete opposite. We were awful. We were all over the place. It's a weird thing. I mean, I guess the question is, do players, I know you can only speak for yourself and kind of your era, but do players realise the importance of these big derby games, whether it's a South Wales derby, Old Firm derby, you know, wherever it may be around the world? Like, they mean so much to fans. Do the players realise, do you think?
I think they do. Well, I can only talk from my own point of view and our sort of squad at that time. And like you say, I came down and played. You know, I've been playing Old Firm games, so I 100% understand how important derbies are. I started in Dundee, with the Dundee derby is the most important thing in the city. You know, similar to Cardiff and Swansea, where it's such a big, you know, fixture. I mean, I'll be honest, like, I didn't playing in a few derbies before and then coming down to the Welsh derby, like, I suppose I didn't realise just how big it was as well. And you learn really quickly. You know, you play the first one, you're like, wow, okay, this is huge. So you know, I think people learn quickly, and you know, it is a huge game that's so important. I think players definitely understand the importance of it. It's just sometimes the magnitude of how big it is, until you sort of experienced it and lived through it. That's when you sort of understand just how big it is. So hopefully there's lots of them that have had the experience of it before, and I'm sure there is, so they'll know how big a game it is on the weekend.
Just sort of lastly, if you could put like your coach's hat on for me a second. So there's been a bit of a discussion. Cardiff have got a real good crop of youngsters coming through between 17 and 19, say. You know, there's 3 or 4 of them. A couple of them have gone alone, but there's still 3 or 4 of them who've been around the first team squad, played in the EFL Cup games. They played a couple of first team games at the end of the season. Some fans calling for them to, you know, get an opportunity, whilst other fans sort of saying, you know, you can't just chuck them in, etc. Maybe it's from speaking to, you know, a lot of footballers, I don't know, but I feel almost like if you're good enough, if you're good enough, you're old enough, sort of thing. Yeah. But is it a bit much to ask, say, if Errol Bullock was to chuck a Louis Giles, who's 17, 18, or a Conte or someone like that in for a South Wales derby? Is that a big ask, do you think?
I don't know if, like, from a coach's perspective, I'd be throwing them in a derby straight away, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, I think with the kids coming through, I mean, like you said, you know, it's good that an academy can produce players and you bring them up to the first team. That's exactly the way it should work. But at the end of the day, they've got to be good enough. You know, they've got to be good enough that, okay, they're an academy prospect, but if they're not good enough for that level and yet, you know, then they have to prove they're ready for that level. So, you know, I don't know about doing it in a derby. We, you know, I've played with some amazing young players who you just know straight away, like, these need to be involved in the first team. these guys should be playing. Like, they're ready now, you know. So it's until they get to that level, and it's just like it's so obvious that they should be playing. Then, you know, the manager will see them day to day within the squad and training and stuff to know whether they're at that level or not. Obviously, I'm not privy to that, but you know, I played with some amazing. I played with young Aaron Ramsey, who obviously is still there, but he's back there now, which is great to see. But it was pretty obvious that he should be playing first team. He was phenomenal talent. So I think there's levels they go through, and once they're ready, you know, the manager will chuck them in. I'm not sure about Derby though, to be honest.
No. Yeah, that was just an interesting question, really. Obviously, Aaron made his debut the season you joined, I think, didn't he? 2007.
Yeah.
So you'd have been 16.
16, yes.
Do you know, every time I see these players all over the country and the world, you know, the youngster at the Euros from Spain, it blows my mind, you know, because my youngest boy is 15, and I'm looking at these players and I'm like, wow, they're like the same age as my boy. And you always look at your kids like differently. They always feel younger, and yeah, it was strange. But like you say, if they're good enough, they'll play. And I think, you know, the Derby is a massive ask. And as an example, we had young Wilson Esbrand on loan last year from Man City, who's like a sort of left-sided winger. And he looked pretty good all the way up. And then the away game at Swansea, he played left back, I think it was, and he looked like a different player. He just looked completely overawed by the occasion, and he never quite recovered after that. He did pick up an injury shortly, but it does show you that you've got to be careful with these players, because for whatever reason, you know, it could have been the pressure, it could have been just the atmosphere, it could be anything, couldn't it? It could just be like a build-up of it. Everyone's different, everyone deals with things differently. But as an example, that, you know, it can be, you know, that's someone who's played a lot of football for someone his age as well.
Yeah, I think it's a mentality side of it. You know, I think the best young players that are ready, they've got that mentality. You know, everyone was talking about Rambo when I first came to Cardiff, saying about this kid that's coming through, and he was phenomenal. And then I think it would have been his first year as a scholar pro, like in the academy and full time. And for the first couple of months, he was quite quiet. I think it was more just getting used to training every day and his body and that. But after that, I mean, he was honestly his mentality was what separated him. He was running first team sessions at 16. It was incredible, mate. Like, I remember he came on semi-final in the FA Cup. He came on at right back because Kev had got cramp or had been injured. Rambo came on at right back. Never played right back in his life, and he was like Cafe, mate. He was up and down. He was overs. But that just shows you just that inner belief and mentality. It's just like next level, and that's why he's reached the levels he has, because obviously he's got the ability, but it's the mentality that separates the best players for sure. The attitude and mentality and the self-belief, and he's certainly had that. So yeah, I think the kids have got to be ready to do it both mentally and with ability. Ability is one thing, but you've got to have the right mentality to be able to do it and handle these big occasions. And you talk about the Spanish kid, Lamine Yamal. I mean, that's ridiculous levels of inner belief and mentality. To do what he's doing for Barcelona, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and the Spanish national team at his age is just outrageous. But there's only a certain small percentage of them in the world for sure. Yeah,
he got his GCSE results, or the equivalent of, in the middle of the Euros, which is just insane. Isn't it? But there we are, mate. Give me a prediction, mate, for Sunday rather.
Let's go. We'll go 2-1 Cardiff.
Safe for that. That's I do think whether it's Sunday or the next week or two, the next game or two, I think it'll click into place quite nicely shortly. Yeah. But just be patient. Let these players get back, because, like, you know, El Ghazi, I think people have forgotten we signed him, because obviously he came in, he was not fit, which we knew, but then his partner was pregnant, so he went back to Holland for a bit to be with her, which is, you know, understandable. It's fine. But it's almost like because he's not been on the bench like some of the others. You almost forget, like, he's a quality player. Like, I remember watching him for Villa when they were in the Championship the last time, and just so good, like so good. He reminded me then of what was that lad who used to play for QPR, number 10? Tarat, yeah. Did you ever play against him?
Yeah, he played. QPR were very good that year in the Championship when he was there. For sure.
He had a habit of making midfielders and defenders look silly, didn't he? Like,
he was
such a player.
Yeah, top player. Yeah.
Top man.
Yeah, it's getting these boys fit and giving them a chance. El Ghazi, Alexander's been out for a while and hopefully he'll get minutes and just keep pushing that minutes up and then get back to flying. And they've got a good squad there. It's just making it all gel together, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, with Alex, obviously he played like an hour or so, didn't he, against Bristol in the EFL Cup the other day. Is he sort of slowly reaching that match fitness level where he'll be able to start and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he's been back training for a while now. It's more just the missed. He's missed a lot of sessions, a lot of games, and just getting back up to that speed. But he's a naturally fit boy. Like in terms of like fitness, he's always up there in terms of the testing and stuff. So he'll not be far off. And it's just about getting him in and incorporating him, and getting the minutes in his legs, and he'll be up to speed really quickly. I'm sure.
Excellent. Gavin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on again, mate. I really, really enjoyed it. I could sit here and talk to you for ages about football and whatnot. When you come down for a game, we'll definitely we'll meet up. We'll do one in person as well. We'll have a chat. But it'll be good to catch up, mate. And hopefully by then, Cardiff will be clicked into gear fully, and we'll be talking about things like playoffs and where the season goes. But let's
hope so.
One step at a time, I suppose, isn't it? Thank you for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon, guys. Please make sure you subscribe and all that good stuff. Spread the word about Cardiff City World. Check out Ace Podcast Nation as well. Got a few good interviews on there recently with Craig Bellamy, Joe Ledley, Willie Boland, and to name a few. But check it out, and we'll be back soon. Cheers.